time to review Notre Dame's defense. I mean, what is it that really makes them stand out? I mean, there's been a lot of conversation about man versus zone. I mean, what do you see out of their man defense?
I think the cohesiveness of the entire group. All 11 play together. It's a really, really well coached unit. The front six, so to speak, are really coordinated with the back five. How they do it is a credit to Marcus and Al Golden, their defense coordinator. They do a really good job. I think they all have the understanding of if they are playing certain coverages, how do people try to attack that? And I think they have answers for it. So I think it's the whole cohesiveness of the whole group that really makes them a special defense.
Josh Fryer was talking earlier this week about how beat up the offensive line is and stuff that a lot of them are playing through. What do you thought about his toughness and the guys on the O line that are playing through some things right now?
Yeah, and it's really everybody, and I would say it's probably the same thing for Notre Dame. When you're going to play this many games in college football, it's 16 for both of us. So we knew it would be a game of attrition. They've lost some players. We've obviously lost Seth and Jimmy and a couple players along the way also. But that's to win the whole thing. It's going to take great team depth. And I think our guys that are playing right now, there's not anybody that's 100% right now. That's just the nature of the game that we play. But the toughness and the grit of that group, especially up front, has really shown through.
Hey, Coach Kelly, Josh Richter with 4th and 5. It's been since 2015 with that Oregon team, since you've had a team on this kind of stage. What is something between now and then that you've learned personally about yourself?
Yeah, it's always about the players. We had great players on that 2010 team. We have great players on this team. And the credit goes to those guys. We're here because of them. Our job as coaches is to put them in position to make plays, but then they go out and play the game. And that team in 10 was really special, and this team right now is really special.
What's this year been like for you going back to offensive coordinator?
It's been a blast. I think we have an amazing staff, and the guys you get to work with every day. You spend 16, 18 hours a day with this group of guys on offense with Brian Hartline and Justin Fryer and Carlos Loughlin and Keenan Bailey and that whole group of guys that we spend time with, Billy Fessler, Riley Larkin. There's a bunch of guys, Tim Drevno, that we spend all the time with offensively. And then the players here are special. And so getting an opportunity to coach them every day and be around them. They love football. They love being a part of it. And it's exciting. It's exciting to be around these guys every day. Hold on. What's up, buddy?
I don't know where I'm allowed to go. Oh, yeah.
Great to see you.
Sorry about that. New Hampshire.
Coach Jeremiah Smith's been a huge part of your offense the last couple of weeks. How
Yeah.
do you make him the center point going against Notre Dame, and how do you think he can best succeed in Monday's?
Well, I think you have to take what the defense gives you whenever you play. And if they're going to try to take Jeremiah away, then we also have other weapons. I think Emeka's a great player. Carnell Tate's a great player. Travion's a great player. Our tight ends really contributed a lot in the Texas game. But obviously, Jeremiah is, for a freshman to do what he's done this season is absolutely, it's kind of sometimes you just kind of wow, and that's just the type of player he is. So, we obviously have plans and thoughts of what we're going to try to do to get Jeremiah going. But we'll see how Notre Dame decides to defend us. I think they've got a really good framework of it this time because when I went the last time, there was no conference championship. It was you finished your regular season and you went to the national championship, and there were 37 days between each game, so there was quite a buildup. For this group, because of the new playoff system with 12 teams being in it, and this being the fourth game of a 4-game stretch, had to play Tennessee, had to get up again to go play in the Rose Bowl. You win the Rose Bowl, gives you an opportunity to go play in the Cotton Bowl. You go win the Cotton Bowl, gives you a chance to play in this one. So I think this has been more of a kind of a weekly thing in terms of our preparation. It's usually about 8 to 10 days in between games. So it's been a different feel than having 37 days in between games. So these guys are focused on exactly what they have to do to win the next game. And they did it in the first 3. That gave them an opportunity to play in this one. And it's everything. We're going to need everything we have. And our guys are prepared to do that.
When Jeremiah first got to campus, did you guys realize this might be
Yeah, I knew the first couple of days you saw him running around out there that he was special, and then you factor in that he was still should have been in high school. But it was evident very early when you watched Jeremiah running around and doing some things athletically that he was a really special talent. It's been great. We have an amazing staff and the guys you get to work with on a daily basis. We got a great administration. Ross Bjork, first Gene Smith and then Ross Bjork do an unbelievable job of supporting the program. And then you get to coach some amazing players on a daily basis, and it's that part's been a lot of fun. So I've really enjoyed this last, I don't know how many months I've been here, 8-9 months. It's been awesome. Yeah, I was just saying earlier it's different. When I went to the national championship with the team I was on went to the national championship, before you won your last regular season game, and then the number 1 and the number 2 team got picked to go play, and then there were 37 days in between. And then with this one, there was about 2 weeks in between our last regular season game, and then our first playoff game. And then there's about 10 days to the next playoff game, and then 10 days to the next playoff game. So it's kind of uncharted territories. We knew it was going to be a battle of attrition. We knew that your depth would really, truly be tested, and we tried to plan for that during the season. We ran, we were a little bit more slowed down on offense, and there was a reason we knew we were going to play in a 16-game schedule, that you just can't run 100 snaps in every single game during the regular season and expect to be fresh at the end of the season. So we kind of planned on that. But it is uncharted territories. This is the first ones to do it. So we're as healthy as we can be going into this last one. We've lost 2 really good players in Seth and Jimmy on the offensive line, but we lost them for the season. The rest of the guys are raring and ready to go, so we're excited about the opportunity.
What's that relationship like with Justin? How do you guys work together to sort out that?
Yeah, it's been great. He's a great football coach. He's a great person. The whole room. We spend a lot of time together as a group. So it's Justin, it's Carlos Lachlan, it's Keenan Bailey, it's Brian Hartline, it's everybody. And I think our staff gets along really, really well. We got a really good understanding of what our system is and how we can use it to attack people, and it changes differently on each week because we face different schematic groupings every week. But it's been awesome, and I really enjoyed working with this group.
If you were commissioner of college football, one thing you could change or anything else, what would it be?
If I was the commissioner of college football, what could I change? Well, there's a lot of things that have gone on in the last couple of years. I think they're moving in the right direction. I think the first thing I would change is they should have a commissioner of college football. That would be the first thing I would change. It would not be me, but there's a lot of really good people out there that I think care very much about this game. But that would be the first thing I would change. I would actually have a commissioner that could be the final answer to everything that we need. I think Nick would be great. I think there's a lot of people. I think there's a bunch of guys. I think Gene Smith, who just retired. Maybe Gene's thinking about doing something different. But I think there's a committee of coaches. I think there should be a committee of administrators, the Gene Smiths of the world that understand that side of it, because that's different. Coaches may not understand that side of it. There's some coaches that have just recently retired. I think Nick. I think David Shaw. I think the world of David Shaw. Chris Peterson would be three coaches right off the top of my head. I think Gene would be a great administrator. I don't have a vote, but any of those guys would be good in that position.
Has there been one area
Yeah, I don't know if there's one. I just think the one thing about Will is he just keeps getting better each week, and the more reps he gets, and I heard him say it last week that he just wishes he was here longer. And I wish we could have had him for more than 1 year. I could be around him for more than 1 year because he's awesome to coach. He really takes coaching very well. He's an unbelievably coachable guy. But he also has there's so much give and take with us. Like, how does this feel for you? And it's because we trust him, and I think he trusts us. And that part's been awesome. And watching him grow as a player and as a person, how he turned into the leader of this offensive football team, and he didn't force it early. It kind of happened organically, and then especially after we lost Seth up front, really kind of a little bit more fell on his shoulders, and I think he handled that really well. But every day he grows. I think he's got a great mindset. He's a lifelong learner. He wants to get better on a daily basis, and that's what makes it fun to coach him.
I think being a head coach in 2025 isn't the same as it was a few years ago. And you kind of want to go back to the reason that they became a head coach, the coach. Now, certain coaches contact you to give you advice on, like, how do I do this? Or how do I, you work your whole life to become a head coach, and it's not what you thought it was, I guess.
Yeah, that's called life. I don't think anybody ever thinks that it's going to ideally be whatever job you have. I'm going to do this because it's exactly how it's going to happen. But I think most coaches and the friends of mine that are in this, we understand that this isn't a scripted deal. There's not a script that's already been laid out for everybody, and this is how it works out. It's, you get excited about the different things that happen. I think part of being a coach is you have to be a problem solver, and there's going to be problems every day. And there's some people that complain about the problems. There's other people that are like, all right, this is why we're in this position. How do we solve this problem? And there's a million different ones you have to solve on a daily basis, but that's the fun part of coaching. So, I think it's a different landscape, but I don't think the game's in a better spot, from where it is right now. I think the game of college football, you look at how many people are watching it and how many people are playing it, how many stories you can tell about some unbelievable players. You look at the stories about the players just from Ohio State and the stories of the players from Notre Dame. The whole thing is pretty special, and we just got to continue to always try to make it better on a daily basis. No, I mean, the game itself is situational. So, we have it. What are our first and 10s? Second and long, second and medium, second and short calls, third and short, third and medium, third and long calls, red zone calls, coming out calls. So we have it where we really spend the entire week during the entire time during the week of really slotting what we want to do from a situational standpoint. So as the game unfolds, what situation are we in right now? Are we in a second and long? Or are we in a second and short? Because how they deploy their defense on second and long and how they deploy their defense on second and short. Sometimes it's the same, but sometimes it's entirely different, so you have to be prepared for that. So we always look at it as the situation occurs, what are the best plays that we have in our system to try to run at this point in time. You can. It's just with this group, we decided that's not the best thing for this group. Well, we play a 16-game season. So if you played 100 snaps through 12 games, you're at 1,200 snaps. I think we were at like 700. This game takes a toll on you. And if going into it, it was a little bit uncharted territory. We'd never played. No one has ever played at the FBS level a 16-game season. So what type of toll does that take on you? So to lead the country and play snapped wasn't our goal. Our goal was to get to the national championship game. So I believe besides the loss of Seth and Jimmy, that everybody else is up and ready to go. So we're fresh. The fact that we have two running backs that can rotate all the time, so you don't have a bell cow and then all of a sudden he's down. What do you do now? We've rotated our receivers. We got a bunch of receivers that can play. We have a bunch of tight ends that can play. So part of it was the length of the season has changed. Before, back when I was at Oregon, you were in the regular season and then you go to a bowl game. We had 37 days off between the final regular season game against Oregon State and then our bowl game against Auburn. That's an entirely different thing. This was, you play your last game of the regular season, 2 weeks later you're playing Tennessee, then you're playing, if you beat Tennessee, you get to go to the Rose Bowl. If you win the Rose Bowl, you get to go to the Cotton Bowl. If you win the Cotton Bowl, you get to go to the national championship. So the whole landscape of the schedule has really had an impact on what we did on both sides of the ball.
Did you sort of see this year as it's going to be a battle of attrition
Oh yeah, Ryan talked to our entire staff about that, and that's been on the forefront of our strength and conditioning program, our nutrition program, how our offense plays, how our defense plays, how our special teams plays. Yeah, that was an overall program decision from the head coach down of how do you handle this length of a season, because it hadn't been done before. So it wasn't like, hey, let's go call this guy because he did it. It's at this level it hadn't been done. So you kind of pick the brains of some people that have been through it at different levels, and then put together a plan for ourselves.
Coach Kelly, two-parter here. First part, offense has been on fire.
Do you know Tim? Because Tim's the king. No, he can go. I'm just saying he's the king. He's the king of the two-parter. So, with a follow-up. Two-parter with a follow-up.
Offense has been on fire. It feels like everything you saw the past 3 weeks has a chance to go. What's that like as a play caller? Just looking down at your sheet, knowing that, hey, I got everything at my own.
Well, I think your confidence as a coach is based upon the players' preparation, and they've been unbelievable in this run up here, and going into Tennessee, going into Oregon, going into Texas. So, it's how prepared are they, and I think they've done a great job. We talk about being the most prepared and the least distracted, and they've done that for 3 straight weeks in terms of these last 3 games, and now that's the challenge again as we finish up this last one. We have a practice today, we have a practice tomorrow. So we're still working the game, and we'll work the game right up until kickoff, and then we'll work the game while the game's going on. So it's really the players and how dialed in they've been in this stretch that we're on right now. So.
And then a Notre Dame specific question. Apologies if you've already answered it, but what's one or two things that they do well that you're going to have your eye on come Monday night to try to attack?
Yeah, I think they just play together as a group. They really, truly understand what the D-line needs from the linebackers, what the linebackers need from the secondary. They all work off of each other. It's a really, really well-coordinated defense, and a lot of credit goes to those players. And you have some older players like Kaiser and Cross and Watts, at all 3 levels that have been around for a long time, kind of the coaches on the field, so to speak. And then I think, Marcus being a defensive guy and Al Golden have done a great job with that entire group. So, the cohesiveness of the entire group, I think, is something that's really special. Hey, Brett. How you doing, buddy? Yeah. I think how well they do it. I think some people just just do this. They cut routes. They coordinate. They handle motion really well. They can double people at times. They can have a free player. They can drop a lineman into coverage even though it's man coverage. So it's not just they play man and this is what to do. It's not just one style. There's a lot of different leverages that they have. So I think they understand how people are trying to attack them, and they can make adjustments within the scheme. So it's a really, really well coordinated operation where I think it's not doing them justice if you say, well, Notre Dame just plays man. No, they play a lot of combinations of man. They can double people. They can have extra eyes in the backfield. They do a lot of different things within their scheme, and that's what makes it so hard. That's why they've been so successful. No, not that style. Maybe on third down a little bit. Did some things from a third down standpoint. Did a little bit of what we've seen on tape from these guys, but not to the level in how well they do it, and then how well coordinated it is, and then to the extent of it. So it's there's a reason they're here, and that group leads them. They're as good a defense as there is in the country. Yeah, I just think our players are really focused on what the next opponent was and what we had to do to win that game. So we talked about being the most prepared and the least distracted. They did a great job of it in the Tennessee game. That gave them an opportunity to go play Oregon. Did a great job when we went out to the Rose Bowl. Gave them an opportunity to go play in the Cotton Bowl against Texas in a really tough environment. And then they did it again. And then, we got 2 more days till we tee it up here again and try to finish this thing off.
Have you guys had a different philosophy offensively in the playoffs than maybe in the regular season?
No, I think our philosophy has always been a week-to-week thing, Brett, based upon who you're playing. So what are the keys to playing Iowa, it's that your focus is on beating a really good Iowa team against Phil Parker, is one of the best. Then your keys are on facing Indiana and what Kurt brought in there with a new defense and what their challenges are, because Iowa's defense and Indiana's defense are different. And the same thing with Tennessee's is different than those guys. So it's really who you face each week, and then what you're. The only one that was different for us is that we played Oregon twice, so we had seen them once before. But besides that, it's always kind of a new challenge, and you start from scratch each week, and say, all right, we watch the last game, we grade it, and then on Sunday we move on to the next opponent, and then we start from scratch, we move on to the next opponent. All right, what's our base run game this week? And it may be totally different than your base run game was last week, based upon who you're playing from a personnel standpoint and a schematic standpoint.
I don't want to say you know Ryan for a long time, but he's the 1900s.
Yes.
What has this run meant for him, and what would it mean for him to win this thing, seeing all the noise that's been out there about him for the past few years?
Yeah, I'm not a noise guy because I don't read it or pay attention to it. I think most of the coaches that have been around as long as I have learned probably no reason to. We always talk about praise and blame is all the same. Don't read it when they're saying good things. Don't read it when they're saying bad things. Really what matters is are you following the vision that you have for your program? And you're working tirelessly every day to do that. And that's what I've seen Ryan do. I've seen him do it from afar. Now I've seen it up close for the last 9 months. And I think he's held fast to what he believes we have to do to be successful, and it's paid off until this point, in terms of where we are, but we got to go finish the deal. So, but it'll always be a process oriented. I think most coaches are. The results I think give credence to your process. That's the way you kind of gauge, is your process working. But it's still that's the most important thing. The day to day. Everybody sees what happens on Saturday, but what happens on Monday has a direct impact on what happens on Saturday. What happens on Tuesday has a direct impact on what happens on Saturday. So, really our focus is in the details on the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, leading up to the Saturday. And then the Saturdays just validates, was your process the right process, or should you tweak it, and how do you tweak it moving forward? Because you can't stay the same. You have to adapt or you're going to die. And I see that from him. He works tirelessly every single day on how do we get a little bit better today than we were yesterday, and we've always kind of followed that mantra.
What's the ceiling for Julian Saint?
The ceiling? As high as he wants it to be. I think he's a tremendously talented player. He's got a great work ethic. We're excited about him. He came in early, so we got spring ball with us. Did a really good job in preseason camp. His reps come down a little bit because Will's a starting quarterback, but between Julian and Lincoln and Tavian, the 3 quarterbacks we'll have during the spring, the ceiling for all those guys is really, really high.
You've developed quarterbacks for a long time. What have you learned is important in accomplishing year one when they don't have Julian?
I think just consistency on a daily basis, and how they try to get better, how they can embrace the process of, can I be a little bit better today than I was yesterday, and continue to do that. It's not going to happen overnight, and nothing happens overnight in this sport. It's a long, arduous process of sticking to the fundamentals so that you don't have to think about it when you're out there. There's more things for you to think about. Processing what the defense is in, what's my reads, all those other things, than to what's my process of how I'm throwing the football. So, and he's done that so far. I'm really, really excited about his future, and Lincoln's and Tavian's. I'm good.
Let's go way back.
Okay.
Let's talk about Ryan Day as a player and a quarterback.
Yeah.
What were his strengths then?
Just an unbelievable competitor. Always prepared. He knew what the defense was going to, give him every week, just because of his preparation. A great leader. I think the players on the team always looked up to him just because of his work ethic and his competitiveness. There was no task too big or too small. He was probably more athletic than people gave him credit for, and ran the ball really well for us. But he was tough, he was hard-nosed, and he was competitive.
Could you see him being a head coach then?
Yeah, he's always been that proverbial coach on the field, whether it was being the point guard on the basketball team, or the catcher on the baseball team, or the quarterback on the football team. That's always kind of been his MO. So I don't think anybody that's known Ryan since he was a little kid in elementary school to to junior high to high school to college is surprised that he got into coaching. They I think he was kind of destined for that.
Thanks, Coach. Go H.
I.O.
Coach, what changed about your career between the Michigan game and the Tennessee game? Whether prep-wise, mentality-wise, like how do you get over that game to play the way they did against Tennessee?
Well, I think it's like anything. I mean, you move on. You learn from what you did in that game, and then you move on. It's the same thing that happened when we lost to Oregon in the regular season. We lost 32-31. Everybody could have done something better in that game. Coaches could have called. I could have called a better game. I always look at what my impact is, and I think every person in our program looks at it the same way. So it's, you lost 2 games in the regular season by 4 points. But what do you do when you win, and what do you do when you lose is really the same exact mentality. So you come in after you beat Iowa 35-7, and you don't say, hey, we got this in the bag, let's go. It's what do we do well in the Iowa game, and let's continue to do that, and then what do we need to correct after the Iowa game. So the approach has always been the same, and the consistency in terms of that approach has always been the same.
You asked about pressure around Ryan Day. Being a quarterback at Ohio State comes with pressure too. How has Will handled that aspect of it to kind of be where he's at right now heading into the
Yeah, Will's been awesome. And I think Will is one of those guys that just improved from game 1 against Akron till now. And the only probably negative on Will is we weren't around him long enough. I think he's unbelievable to coach because he is so coachable, but he's really sharp, and he'll come back in with his own ideas too. Have you thought about it this way? And then we'll throw those ideas around, and his work ethic is off the charts. His mindset in terms of being a quarterback and wanting to get better. Like how important Tuesdays are to Will is really important, because if it's important to the starting quarterback, it's going to be important to the rest of the team. He's been great in terms of his development, but that's the intrinsic motivation that he has.
Is there anything you've missed about being a head coach?
I mean, yeah, there's a lot of things that are different. It's just different. So, but I don't have the time, nor do I sit back and think like, well, what about this? What about that? Because everything's coming at you. So you're getting ready to play Notre Dame and watching Notre Dame film, so you're not sitting in your office saying, geez, I wonder what it would like to be a head coach again. I'm just not wired that way. So whatever the challenge is that's presented itself to you this week is what that challenge is. So
Have you enjoyed being able to focus more on ball and some of the big picture stuff that head coach deals with?
yeah, it's been fun because of the guys you get to work with. So our offensive staff is amazing. The players we get to coach are amazing. So that's what's made it. I think it's the people you work with, not really the job that you do. So,
Hey, Tim.
hi Heather, how are you?
Good, thanks. Coach Knowles said that after the Oregon game, there was some finger pointing at the defense, and then
There was some what?
finger pointing at the defense. He felt like he didn't say you did it. He was just saying in general.
I don't point fingers at anybody.
After the Michigan game, he felt it started to turn the other way, and at some point, everybody said, "We're not doing this. We're not going to do that." In your mind, what happened to bring everybody together after Michigan to get to this point?
I think Ryan did a good job, met with the players, and they talked through it. They had a players-only meeting with the head coach that was, I think they understood what was presented, what's ahead of us, and I think that's the big thing. So when you look at the game against Michigan, and you can say that is it could be one of two things. It could be your tombstone or it could be a stepping stone. And Ryan and our players turned it into a stepping stone that can put us into position to get ready to go play Tennessee. And if you beat Tennessee, you get an opportunity to go to the Rose Bowl and play Oregon. If you beat Oregon, you get an opportunity to go to Cotton Bowl and play Texas. And then if you win that game, you get an opportunity to be here. So kind of their mindset, and I think Jack said it himself, is what's our options after that game. And our options are, let's get into the tournament because we knew we were still getting into the tournament. And then what can we do in the tournament? And I think this team is shown what type of football team it is. It's shown its resiliency. But I think it's just really their mindset of that, are we going to use that last game as a tombstone, or are we going to use that last game as a stepping stone? And they obviously have used it as a stepping stone.
How much did you change with the play calling?
I think our play calling is a week-to-week thing. So there's not a trend that goes on each week. I think when you face Indiana is different than when you face Tennessee. And that's just the nature. And I think everybody you face is like that. So I think that's part of how you adapt. What we run against Notre Dame isn't going to be what we ran against Texas, because Notre Dame and Texas defenses are different. So,
Thank you.
all right, Heather.
You obviously had the opportunity to experience one of these games, and while this is definitely a different format, what would you take to give advice to your players, but also fellow coaches?
Say that. What was the last part?
What advice can you give to your players as well as the fellow coaches?
I think it's different because we've been in playoff mode. We've been in this since we played Tennessee because it's really like the NCAA basketball tournament. It's survive in advance. So if you don't beat Tennessee, you're out. So it's not like, hey, when we get to the national championship, we'll then talk about this. We've been talking about what are the important things that we have to do to beat Tennessee? What are the important things we have to do to beat Oregon? What are the important things we have to do to beat Texas so that we have an opportunity to play Notre Dame? So our message isn't going to change. Our message is we want to be the most prepared and the least distracted. As you get moving up in these games, you go from the first round to the Rose Bowl to the Cotton Bowl to the national championship. All of a sudden, I think the distractions become bigger, and you have to learn how to deal with the distractions. Like this media day is different than the Rose Bowl media day, and rightly so. But that doesn't change that the most important thing for us today is we have meetings coming up. We have a walkthrough coming up, then we have practice coming up, and that's the most important thing that we got to get today. And then this is, in our world, is a Thursday, because it's Saturday, but our game isn't until Monday. So this is our Thursday mindset. What's our Thursday mindset going to be like when we get in the meeting rooms when we get back? What's our Thursday mindset going to be like when we get on the practice field today?
Chip, how are you?
Hey, what's up, fellas? How you doing?
How do you talked about bouncing back from Michigan loss. I mean, how do you do it when everybody's guys?
I don't think you can pay attention to that the sky's falling. It's when you look at each game, what do we do well? And then what do we have to correct? And I think whether you win or lose, that has to be your approach. Because I think sometimes when you win, it's even tougher because, we won, don't worry about it. Well, then that's going to come back to haunt you. So I think what Ryan did, and he set the tone for everybody, is that we were really, really consistent in our approach of how we do things. Because if you're not, then you're saying, well, how we do things is wrong to begin with. So I think as a group, they understood. The one thing about this group is everybody takes ownership. So you have to take ownership as coaches. What did we do wrong in terms of putting them in position to make plays? Then they take ownership. Then everybody kind of, all right, now we learned that. Now let's move on. Who's our next opponent? We found out after the championship week that we're going to play Tennessee. Now what's our prep for Tennessee look like? And can we just focus on Tennessee? And there was never any talk about, well, if we beat Tennessee, then we get to play this time, then we get to play this time. No, it's just Tennessee. And then once we played Tennessee, and it's really, you listen to the basketball coaches talk, it's just, it's survive in advance is really what it turned into for us. But I think it was our ability to stay present and stay in the present moment, address what just happened, and then say, hey, what's our next option? And our next option is we're still going to be in the tournament. We get an opportunity to play Tennessee, then let's get our focus on Tennessee and where we go from there.
Obviously, it's Michigan, Ohio State, but can you maybe put too much importance on it? Looking at it, I mean, is it too big?
Not if you're in Michigan and Ohio. I think maybe if you're from the outside, and I've only been there a short time, but it is Michigan, Ohio State, and it's.
The guy's 45 and what he considers.
I know that, and I think he's done a great job with that, and I think he understands the weight of what this job is, and it's different. Being the head coach at Ohio State is different than being the head coach at a lot of other schools at the FBS level, and that comes with the territory, and I think he's shown who he is, and I think he's done an unbelievable job in that situation, and he'll continue to do that because the one thing he's been through this whole process is consistent, and I think the players really, you can talk all you want, but they're going to observe how you act and how you react, and how he's acted and how he's reacted to everything has been extremely consistent. Our Tuesdays are our Tuesdays, our Wednesdays are our Wednesdays, and they're intense, and it doesn't matter what's in front of us. It's about being really good on that day, and it's the same thing today. Like, we know we play in 2 days against Notre Dame. We're not that, we don't give that whole, we don't know what day the game, we know exactly when the game is, we know exactly when the kickoff, we know all that stuff. But the game doesn't matter right now. What matters is Thursday. So we have meetings coming up after this, and then we got to have a really good Thursday practice because we're not done. Like, we still have 2 really good big days of prep that are really important for our success on Monday night. And so I think our players are really focused on that too, because that's what the head coach, not only does he say that, he actually lives that every day.
Coach, talk about finding the important things required to beat each individual opponent. What are some of those important factors to having success against Notre Dame?
Notre Dame's not going to give you anything easy, so you have to execute. You're going to have to make contested catches. Quarterback's going to have to be really accurate with the ball. we're going to have to protect against a really good pass rush. You know, you're not going to out scheme Notre Dame. That's not, you know, and I don't think when you get into the college football tournament, you're out scheme anybody anyways. It's about players making plays, and that's the big and most important thing is that, you know, who executes the best, like who makes a contested catch, where's the location of the football? Is it on the back hip and he's going to catch and fall down, or is it on the front hip and he can catch and run? You know, are we going to give the quarterback time where he has a clean pocket where he can make those throws? So it's really about execution.
You guys have started out really hot the last 3 games, particularly your quarterback. What's been the key to getting those guys off to a hot start? Your quarterback?
Yeah, but he's done that all year long. You know, our opening drive in Iowa was a 12-play drive for a touchdown. You know, I mean, he's been pretty sharp. And each week he's gotten better, but I think he's really smart. He's pretty accurate with the ball. I think he's second in the country in completion percentage. He's done an unbelievable job of really understanding our offense and adapting to what we do. And he deserves a lot of credit because he's worked extremely hard at it. When I look at Notre Dame's what? Yeah. I see length. You know, they're not small guys. You know, they got some height and some length to them, so they'll match up because our two outside receivers, Carnell and Jeremiah, are tall also. So I think they do a great job of staying on top of routes. I think they do a great job with their technique and their fundamentals. They're aggressive with their hands. They can stop your releases and make you work hard from a release standpoint. They're really well coached, and I think they got a really good understanding, not only what they're supposed to do on a play, but where everybody else is, so where their help is coming from. Yeah, it's very coordinated. I think the front and the back relate really well to each other. There's no weakness. You know, I think they've got veteran players at each level. You know, Cross has been there for a long time. Kaiser has been there for a long time. Watts has played a lot of football, so I think, you know, at the D-line level, at the linebacker level, and at the secondary level, they got a veteran that I think really leads those guys. But I think how well coordinated they are is really the one thing that when you first look at the tape, that you got to give credit to Marcus and to Al for watching that whole operation work.
There's a lot of veterans on the Notre Dame defense, but they have had a few younger players step up, especially in linebackers. One in particular that you stepped up is Drake Bowen. What have you seen from him?
Yeah.
On film that you're looking at this week?
Yeah, his physicality jumps off. Tough, hard-nosed football player will really thump you. You got to make sure you get a hat on him. He can key and diagnose plays really well. But I've been really, really impressed with watching him on tape.
Chip, I mean, you've been around a lot of great defensive coordinators, prepared for a lot. What sticks out about Jim Knowles, working with him and how he gets that defense right?
Yeah, you know, I think with Jim's defense, it's he makes it really simple for the players, but when you go against it, it's complex because we go against it, you know, every day in practice. We also gone against it through the spring and through preseason camp. He makes the complex seem simple to the players, and they can execute. But I think they have a lot of tools in their toolbox. They can do a lot of different things, present a lot of different looks to you, and he understands the skill sets of the players that he has, and puts them in position to make plays, and then they go out and make plays. So I'm really impressed with everything that him and Larry and James and Matt and Coach Walt have done. I think they do a heck of a job, and I know I do not enjoy going against them.
Does he get enough credit just for the year-to-year improvement that Ohio State's makes? When he got there was a lot of criticism about the secondary and everything, and now they're top 5 in a lot of categories. He's been able to kind of get that all rectified.
Yeah, I wasn't here a couple years ago, so I have no idea what they were saying about him. Nor do I listen to what people say about people, so I don't really have an answer on that one. How are you? I think our players are dialed in and understand, you know, what we need to do to defeat the schemes that we're playing. But to be 42-0, then that means our defense is dialed in also, because we're not letting people score points too. So, you know, I think our offense and defense feed off of each other. So if say we had a kickoff and we can force a 3 and out, short field when they punt it. So now we got an opportunity. I think they kind of work together as a group. But the credit goes to the players in that situation. I missed that question. Try to call good ones. That's the first philosophy. Everything we do is situational. So, I don't think you can script the first 15 plays because you don't know what situation you're going to be in. So say, hey, my first 15 plays, I'm going to throw a bomb. Well, we had a pick on the 15-yard line. So you're on the plus 15. You're not throwing the ball deep. So I think then you go to your red zone plan. What's your red zone? So every situation on the field is mapped out for us. What's our third and short plan? What's our second and short, second and medium, second and long plan? What's our coming out plan? What's our red zone plan? So it's more situational for us is really what our philosophy is. Post-game quirks? I don't really see him post-game. He gets hustled off to the media, and then most of us are back to our families as much as we can. So I don't know if there's any post-game quirk I can give you on that. I apologize. Oh, he's a huge family guy, and that's always been, where he's from, his family. And I've known his family for a really long time. I've known his wife for probably the same amount of time as I've known Ryan. So they're both come from amazing families back home, and that's always been the biggest fabric for him is that family ties, and him and his wife and his kids, and Ryan and Grace and Nia and that whole thing, and his father-in-law Stan and his mom Lisa, the whole group. It's a one big extended family, but he's all about family, and I think that's really what his inner motivation and what drives him is that love for his family.
You mentioned Donovan Jackson earlier in the week and called him an unsung hero.
Yeah.
How do you explain a guy changing positions to that position mid-season later?
Yeah, it's just a credit to the type of person that Donnie is. He's one of the true leaders of our football team. And not only does he lead with his words, he leads with his actions. And that, if that's what you need me to do, that's what I'll do. And wasn't concerned with draft stock, draft status, all those other things. And I actually think because of his approach and how he's done it, it's actually probably improved his draft stock and his draft status. But Donnie's all about winning, and Donnie's all about, he truly cares about the brotherhood. He truly cares about his players. And if this is what you need me to do to help us win, then I'm in. It does. It really does. Yeah. No question.
I thought I heard you say last week, sort of embracing and going finding good jump to that against Texas. Were you sort of expecting that this week? And then how does that change your mindset if you get into sort of a more lower scoring, fewer possessions sort of game?
We expect that every week. I don't think there's ever a game you go into and say, this is going to be a cakewalk. I think we always plan for we plan for our opponents. We don't fear them, but we respect everybody. And I think this Notre Dame defense, once you turn on the tape, it's going to be a dogfight this week. And I don't watch the other side, so I don't know what's going to go on Notre Dame's offense versus our defense. But I know our offense versus their defense is going to be a dogfight, and we got to be prepared as the most prepared we are for any game we've ever played this entire season to go against this group. What's up, Pat? Good.
Just your impressions of Notre Dame's secondary.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've watched last year.
I have. I watched last year. I watched the year before. We when you have this amount of time, you watch every game humanly possible. But there,
Some things to maybe to limit Harrison.
they did.
I don't know if that's applicable to this team this year.
Yeah, that's the unknown. You don't know what they're going to do. Marcus and Al do such a good job with that whole group, but I'm impressed. Both corners are tall and long, and they do a great job in single coverage, And then when you can add Watson there as a safety over the top, he's as good a safety as there is in the country. I know Ryan Clark he played at ASU, so I faced him for 3 years before I got here. He's new at Notre Dame. I'm new here, so was really, really impressed with him at Arizona State. I think he's done a great job at the nickel for them. And then when you have someone like Kaiser, who's a sixth-year player, that I'm sure he has every answer to every formation check and it's just innate for him because he's been there so long, and he is that truly coach on the field. So I think the veteran leadership with Cross up front and with Kaiser and Watts is special. But I think that secondary is really well coordinated. I think because they played it so much, they know how people are going to try to attack it, so they have some answers for that. And I think that'll be the game within the game. Where are they leaning? Who are they double? They can double anybody they want. And, but they can't double everybody. If they do, it's a penalty. They have too many guys on the field. And we saw that before against some teams sometime during the year. But I don't know. But I'll tell you what, it was a unique message to our players that you can't stop us with 11. You had to stop us with 12. And then you saw the final results of 11 versus 11. So that was a message to our team for the week leading up to the Rose Bowl that I think resonated really well with our guys. So, but for them, I think how well coordinated they are. You just got to be impressed. As a football guy, you just got to sit back and go, "Wow, that's pretty good." They do some really good things, and it's going to be a heck of a matchup on Monday night.
Hey, Chip, on the other side of the ball, your team, Jack Sawyer, who you see in practice. What is your interpretation of him? Obviously, when he gets to the team.
I love Jack. Jack's awesome. As good a person, player I've ever been around. The one thing that I don't think people really know about us is how athletic Jack is. Like, he was a high school quarterback. I saw some highlights of him playing basketball, but he warms up before the game. I would say he's in the top 3 or 4 on our team, including the quarterbacks and throwing a ball. Like Jack, and he always coached, you need me a quarterback? Okay. Then he rips off a 60-yarder, and I was like, usually guys say that, and it kind of comes out like this, but not Jack. Jack's a great athlete, but he's Ohio State. He truly bleeds Buckeye blood, and it's in him, and his approach to everything on a daily basis is as good a teammate and as good a leader as ever been around.
And as a follow, I guess it feels like this is his moment in these last 4 to 6 weeks. It's kind of become the nature. Have you seen that in Turkey?
Yeah, I mean, I've been impressed with Jack for a long time, so maybe I think the rest of the world's seeing what we've seen, but I think that combination of Jack and JT is as good as it gets, and we had to face him in practice every day, so I know how good Jack is. But iron sharpens iron. I think Josh and Jimmy and now Donnie have gotten better because they have to go against Jack and JT every single day.
Thank you.
What are the qualities of Will that's enabled him to join kind of an established program and, excel and get to this point? How challenging is it as a quarterback to join a program?
No, it is challenging of anybody to come in new. I think the one thing with Will is Will's authentic. He did not come in on day one and say, "Hey, I'm the leader of this team. Let's go." He came in saying, "I got to learn this offense," and worked extremely hard at learning the offense and how was he going to fit in. That was the most important thing for him. Not how am I going to fit in, of just how do I learn this offense so that I can be the starting quarterback. And he went out and earned it. He didn't earn it through the springtime. We didn't name a quarterback after the spring, and then halfway through preseason camp, it was evident to all of us that he was going to be the guy. And then every day his goal is to get better every day, and he's done that, and it's kind of grown. And then I think his leadership has really started to show up probably when Seth got hurt, and then we lost our alignment up front, and we had already lost Jimmy, and Seth was really our leader up front. Then we lost Seth, and it was really Donnie, Emeka, and Will were the real 3 leaders left on the offensive side of the ball, and you've seen him grow, and I think each week he's gotten better. He does a great job protecting the football. When we've needed him the most, his play in the Tennessee game, his play in the Oregon game, his play in Texas, and those plays he made on the final drive with his legs and with his arm. I think all the players really appreciate that. But I think the big thing with Will is he's authentic. What you see is what you get. He really wants to be better every day. Like some people say that, but he really wants to, and goes out and tries to do it every day. I think it all depends on the individual, and so what's the makeup of the individual? Sometimes the transfer thing is a home run and it works, and then sometimes the transfer thing is it doesn't work. But I think it's really the matchup, and is it a good match for the school and for the player?
Coach Kelly,
Yes, Lincoln.
I've got a lot of people wanting to know who your favorite quarterback in the league is.
My favorite quarterback in the room, it depends on what we're doing. So I think all of them have a unique skill set in terms of what we're doing. But there's 3 quarterbacks that will ride and die with the quarterback coach. And maybe if we're late for a meeting, we'll be late for a meeting together. And there was one that he didn't even come get us. So we're still a little mad about him. Thanks, Lake. Yeah, just amazing consistency. Like Carnell, I think to be a great receiver, you have to be where you're supposed to be, when you're supposed to be there, with separation and catch the ball. And Carnell is there every single time. Like if Carnell's supposed to be 18 yards on the left hash, when you look up, when the quarterback gets to his second read, Carnell is at 18 yards at the left hash. Like there's just a consistency to Carnell. He's an unbelievable ball tracker. So there's really a huge catch radius in terms of what he does. And there's a toughness to him. A lot of our blocking schemes, he's our flanker, our Z. He's involved in a lot of digging out safeties, digging out linebackers. And Carnell, even though he doesn't look like it, he's probably our most physical blocker out there. So there's just a consistency to CT that I think sometimes you take for granted, but he's always where he's supposed to be and gets the job done.
I'm in general, transfer portal era. A lot of guys in his position may not have stuck around. What he did, what does that speak to him?
Yeah, I mean, he's a starting wide receiver at The Ohio State, so I think that's a pretty good deal. And I think he's just such a competitor that he wants to win, and he wants. That's the most important thing. I think he's not a guy that's about how many catches am I going to get. You can be that guy, but all those guys that are about how many catches am I going to get, they're at home right now. They're not playing for a national championship, and what Carnell wants to do is win a national championship with his brothers. He cares extremely about the guys on his team, and I think that's part of this whole team. I think it's a really, really, really unselfish football team. Is what do we need this week? And in the Texas game, we needed Carnell. He was our leading receiver. In the Northwestern game, he was our leading receiver. So, how defenses are going to try to defend us, you need all weapons. And how does it work out on Monday night? I don't know, but I know I'm extremely grateful that we got Carnell, JJ, and Mech out there. So, thanks. Yeah. Well, I would hope every receiver has that mindset. That's probably not the case, but other teams have played us in man. JJ's biggest plays in the Oregon game, I think people don't understand football because they were against zone, so it wasn't like, JJ ran a post route on a middle safety, and it wasn't a man-to-man coverage, and no one was running with JJ because it wasn't man coverage. So I think people are like, how do you play JJ? Well, I think 2 of his touchdowns, they were zone coverages, and he exploited them. So I think sometimes people get caught up in that, like, how do you play this guy man? Well, sometimes he's more dangerous against zones than he is against man because there's more space to the defense. I think maybe they think they'll be closer to routes, but I think you have to prepare for all. You just can't go into a game and say they're going to do this or they're going to do that. I think you got to have an answer if they're going to do, and they do other things. It's not like they just play man the entire game. They do a good job in cover 3, good job in cover 4, good job in cover 6. They're good in all aspects of their defense. No, I think it really is. You got to be good versus it all because there's not a. If it's zone, he's going to have a great game. If it's man, he's not going to have a great. He's been good against both in the 3 games leading up to this, and really the entire season. You don't complete 74% of your passes if you're only good versus one coverage. And I think Will does a really good job of pre-snap understanding his reads, post-snap understanding if there's any change in the coverage, and then understanding if it's zone, the ball's got to go here. If it's man, the ball's got to go here. Yeah, there's less administrative things. There's less overall. Like, I don't have anything to do with the defense. I don't have anything to do with special teams. Obviously, as the head coach, you're involved in offense, defense, special teams. I recruit a position. I recruit a side of the ball. I don't recruit on the defensive side of the ball. The head coach has to recruit on the defensive side of the ball. So just what my focus on is more offense and position-specific quarterback than having to deal with the whole program. So those are really the biggest differences between being a coordinator and being a head coach. I enjoy it because of the people I work with. So it's not I don't think it's a job title. I don't think this job title is better than that job title. I think it's because of who you're with every day, and the staff we have is amazing on the offensive side. Players we have on the offensive side are amazing. So to get to be around those guys, for 14, 16, 18 hours a day, you better enjoy who you're working with.
Coach, I'd love you to compare and contrast just your time in Eugene, like the environment there. That was obviously a super special time, and then how this environment is as well.
Yeah, I love both places. They're different. I'm not a comparison guy. The Teddy Roosevelt line of comparison is the thief of joy. So I think every experience you have is special. The people of Eugene are truly special. Like their belief behind that university and the support that university has. And I met some amazing people that are still really, really close and dear friends to today. So I'm so excited that I had that opportunity to spend 6 years there. And then everywhere I've been has been a unique experience. And so I've always approached it that way. I don't compare if I was in Eugene to when I was in Philadelphia, or was I in San Francisco, or was I in Los Angeles, or was I in Columbus. It's just enjoy where you are, and the old adage, be where your feet are. And I've met an amazing time from my time starting at New Hampshire to being with Jimmy Margraf at Johns Hopkins University to where I am now. So I think every day I get to do this for real. This is pretty good. It's pretty good. It's a lot of fun.
I know fans, Oregon's my alma mater, so
It's my wife's alma mater.
watching that Rose Bowl
Yeah.
that Oregon has played so well and for so long, and you putting the curb stomp, the American History X to our team was tough. A lot of fans felt like that. Can't Chip just pull back the lever on us?
Did they feel bad for me the 4 times I lost before I played that game?
Probably not.
Probably not. So, no, I every time I've gone back to Eugene, the reception's been amazing, and the people there are amazing, and it was really just maybe ironic that we had to play them in the Rose Bowl, because we actually lost to Ohio State in my first Rose Bowl there, and then got a chance to win a second one against Wisconsin there. So, but I think that's just part of the ongoing story. But there are never any ill feelings. That's a special place and a special time.
Did it feel even more umph to put that much of an offense?
No, I don't put it that way. I got to see Ronas Grasu, one of my former players, pregame. I got to see Jonathan Smith pregame, Kenyon Barner, guys I had an opportunity to coach, and then people like Ed Miletus, who's a great friend and a big booster there before the game started. I got to meet Sabrina, Ronas's wife now, but one of the Oregon legends. So that part was really cool. But then once the game starts, it's the game. So thank you. What's up, brother? How are you? Are we good? Hi, Jared. Oh, yeah, I'm fine. What do you got? That's a long question. Why Ohio State? I think my relationship with Ryan and knowing that if I wasn't going to be a head coach and I was going to go work with somebody, my pre-existing knowledge of him and what the day-to-day would be like. And I had been with him coached him as a player and coached with him at a couple stops at New Hampshire and in the NFL together. So, that familiarity. And I also knew a couple other people that were on staff. And then the type of players that were always recruited to go to Ohio State, those are the guys you want to coach, that love playing football and love each other. So that part was really, really fun. And then for us, it's every game is a different week. So, we look at what we did in each game we've done all season long, whether we win or lose, and how do we improve on our weaknesses, and how do we get better at that? How do we continue to do the things we're doing better? And then it just goes from week to week to week. So I don't look at it as a single blip. I know a lot of people do. Only look to one game during the regular season, like the other 11 don't matter, and I get that. If you're in Ohio, you understand that. That's just part of the nature of being in Ohio. But for us, there's there's an approach to what we do after every game in our after action reports of how do we correct this? Because if you win and you don't address those things, they're going to come back to haunt you also. So I think the credit goes to our players being able to focus and stay on task. That in days gone by, if you lost that last game of the year, you didn't go to the Rose Bowl, and that was it. It was over. Now with this college football playoffs, there's another opportunity ahead of you, and that's, I think, the difference in it is that because the landscape of college football has changed, and your opportunity to go compete in a championship, even though you lost the last game of the regular season, is a really big deal, and our guys approached it that way. And because they approached that way and because they've taken that mindset, we're here right now. And we got 2 more good days of prep, and then we got to go ready to play a really good Notre Dame team. Thanks.